Awesome. How is everyone doing? I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope you guys have at least gotten started on the project or on the exercise today. So here I am sharing my screen, and I'm gonna go through the steps just like you did, and kind of walk you through how to solve this, right? So step one, setting up TinyMCE. There are two ways to do this, as I've already discussed. The first way is npm init. I would create an existing folder that you want to specifically call something. You could also just name the folder, but just say npm init vite 5 or the latest vite at latest, however you want to go about this, and then template and then React SWC. I had a few questions about what React SWC is. SWC basically is just saying that you want something like Babel rather than see, it just says that you want something like Babel to run your application and bundle it and things like that. Vite uses it. It's a lot faster than Babel, and that's why that is over there. It's just a template to build your starting repository on. If you don't want to go through all of that chaos, I recommend is to do npmi run dev. So let me actually share my screen. Let's see, I think this is the studio code. So here I have Visual Studio Code, and you can use whatever editor works well for your use case. And what I'm going to do over here is I am first going to say I want to clone my repository. So you have the boilerplate code, right? So okay. And then I'll just store it over here and then say git clone and then clone this repository, React exercise -Sugosh, right? Once I have this repository cloned, okay, I go into that repository, cd into that repository. And then what I have to do is I do npmi and then npm run dev. Okay. Once I do npmi and npm run dev, what should ideally happen is, let's see, you should be able to open this in your editor, but I also realized that I'm going to have to do a little bit of switching. Is there a way to just share my main window? Yeah, I don't think I mind this. We'll see if I regret this later. Yes, so I have this running on localhost 8080. And then if I switch tabs over here, this is localhost 8080 that I have. And I'm running this editor on here. Now let's take a look at the code base a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and open my folder. I believe I put it under documents. So I'm going to open that folder. Yeah, whatever. So here, this is the code base, right? I have my Vite config, which I set the port to 8080 specifically. You can feel free to set the port to whatever you need it to be for your configuration. That's just something we use. And then here I can see that I have my app.js X. It's a very simple application. And then I have a TinyMCE placeholder here. That placeholder is what this giant input box is. It's saying this is where I want to replace TinyMCE editor. So that kind of gives you a hint on where you need to get started to work. Then you have a bunch of components that kind of help you set this up. The sidebar, of course, sets this part up. The content component would set this top part of the content up with the week 2 Q&A. Maybe there's a better name for that. Let me know. And then the button.jsx, that sets up the 2 buttons on the bottom of the page. So that's kind of what this app.jsx looks like. That's not what we're here about. We're here for TinyMCE. So how do I get TinyMCE set up? So what you're going to do is we're going to go back to our instructions that we were looking at. And you would have seen in the instructions that in order to set up the TinyMCE, you need to install the TinyMCE React component. The TinyMCE React component, as I mentioned earlier, is just a UI wrapper on top of TinyMCE. So it's pretty simple. You go to your terminal. I hope everyone can see my page. If not, let me, yeah. And then you copy the code snippet, and then you say, hey, npmi save TinyMCE React to this project. Once you do that, what you will see happen is that in your package.json, it would have installed TinyMCE. That's what this command is doing, right, in your project. So once you do that, you can actually get started. So let's go back over here. Yeah, it is sharing my screen. Sorry, for a second I thought it wasn't. So yeah, let's get started. Then what do? Then I can go to my React Quick Start documents just to understand how to set up TinyMCE, or I can go and navigate and get a TinyMCE account. The way I would have done this is gone over here. And as I said, for this exercise, we were using the cloud option. So the challenge was just to figure out which one to click on, self-hosted or cloud. If you clicked on self-hosted, it would just give you a file that you can then put into your project and then kind of route and point to that file. We're not going to be doing that for this purposes. We are going to be doing the free version. Another question I got was, well, do I have to pay? Because a lot of these plugins that we're using in this exercise, such as templates, AI Assistant, are all paid plugins. The answer is no, you don't have to pay. There's a 14-day free trial for templates and AI Assistant and 21 other premium plugins. So I would just go ahead and create an account with TinyMCE. So I'd go ahead, continue with Google. I already have an account created over here. So what you can do is either go to, if you're using a general HTML JS, then you have a code snippet for that. Because you're using React, you have this existing code snippet with your own unique API key. I will say don't try to use my API key. It's very much configured to my account. So even if you have access to this, you're not going to be able to use it. So get your own API key from this. You're going to be able to either copy this or move this into the editor. The way I would approach this is, let's keep app.jsx as simple as possible. And what I would do is I'd say, I want to replace this, right? I want to replace this with a TinyMCE component. So I'm actually going to create a new file and I'm going to call it a tiny editor. I think I called it a tiny editor in the solution. So let's stick with that. Tiny editor. And I am going to import the editor from, I believe it's at, love Copilot, don't we? Okay, so import editor from TinyMCE React. That's how we do it. How do I know that's how you do it? Over here, you can see that's the case. We've already told you how to do that. This kind of imports the editor component that then you can use to do your code. So let me get going a little bit faster. So I'm going to copy this piece of code. And this is this is just a function, right? So I'm going to say export default function, tiny editor, and then I'm going to say return. And I want you to return that. And there we go. So I have that returning that over there. Yeah, so it has a bunch of preset plugins and icons and things like that. This might seem like you're getting close to done, but I'll be honest, you're not done just yet. What you should do is there's like tricks and caveats and stuff. So I would go into the quick start guide. And when I'm reading this, I would realize there are a few more things that you do, which is you need to configure how I believe your init is set up, because that will end up in a few editor instances. So we need to make sure that happens. We can also assign an initial value, but that I think we've already taken care of. So I think this happens right after the API key, right? So that. Oh, did I just put a comma there? Whoops. All right, so we have that. We have the editor ref set up, and then what we had to do is say const editor ref equals use ref null. And what that does is kind of initializes it so you don't get like an initializing error. Once you've done that, you've basically kind of set it up, you've had their API key, and then now let's just go back to our terminal and let's just say npm run dev. Sweet. Well, I think I had one already running over here. And if I reload this, that doesn't work. Oh, I know why that doesn't work. I had to initialize the app. So of course it doesn't work because in app.jsx, I needed to initialize my tiny editor. So that makes sense. Haven't we all done some mistakes in the past? All right, make sure it's imported. It's all good to go. It's looking great. And then you do that. Oops, looks like I hit an editor load. All right. So of course there's going to be a little bit of, let's see if I can find another API key that I have around. I do. No, for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to change it to an internal thing. And okay, your API key should work out of the box. I've just been using my editor a lot. So yeah, here you have a TinyMCE editor set up. So it's that simple. Basically took a few steps. If I want to reiterate what we did, we added a new component. We added TinyMCE to our package JSON by importing it. And then we initialized our TinyMCE editor, or we created a new component, added the API key, initialized the thing with some of the default settings, and then we have a fully working and functional editor ready to go. Sweet. Any questions on that so far? Oh. Do you have any questions on that? I don't want to move on if we don't have any questions. Okay, sweet. I see that some of you didn't see my screen. I really hope you saw the important part. So I'm going to go ahead to the next step, which I think I'm going to just try to. Sweet. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to do that. All right. So the next step that the instructions asked was let's add a few plugins, right? So before I talk about plugins, and you've already seen this sort of list of plugins, Anchor, Autolink, that we just kind of provide out of the box, right, for you to use. What does that mean? So plugins is basically a part of TinyMCE component that adds functionality to your editor. AI Assistant is a plugin. Bold, italics, underline is a plugin. Undo, redo is a plugin. Even typing is a plugin if you really want to get into the depths of it. But I don't think anyone wants to configure typing, so we don't offer that. And table is a plugin, so it allows people to insert and manage tables in their content. So it just enhances your editor's capabilities and enables you to customize as you need. So yeah, so let's think about some plugins that maybe we want to use, right? And I'm guessing my screen, of course, won't share. All right, this is a fun screen share. All right, let's go over here. I think you can see all of this. Okay. So I'm going to go to the TinyMCE features page, which was linked in that exercise doc. And you have so many different plugins, right? These are some of our user favorites: PowerPaste, AI Assistant, templates, spell checker, merge stack, revision history. Another way to find out about TinyMCE plugins is to go to the documentation and then go to our plugins. And then you can see this whole set of open source plugins to pick from. And then you can see this whole set of premium plugins to pick from, right? So I think I'm going to choose a few plugins just for the purposes of our example. Am I going to have to, man, I wish it was like Zoom where I can just pick. We're just going to go for this. This is going to be a lot easier for me to do. All right. So I'm sharing my entire screen and I'm going to pick a few plugins, right? So let's go over here and let's see. We're building an LMS editor, a learning management system. So probably the number one thing that's really important is to make sure that whatever you're putting into your editor is accessible, right? So let's try the accessibility checker, right? It's really important that whatever I'm putting out there is accessible to all my things. So the accessibility checker, it allows you to check if it's WCAG and Section 508 compliant. All I have to do is copy this plugin, accessibility checker, and then add A1 check to the toolbar. That's pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is go in here, add accessibility checker, and then I don't see a great place to put this yet. So maybe I'm going to create bold italics. I think it's good after bold and italics. All right. I'm going to create a little bit of a division. This kind of like, I don't know what you call this, but this division, the straight line that we put over here, it just divides your toolbar nicely to create like groups of icons rather than just have one separately. So you can actually look at that. And then you have A1 check. So we go over here, we do A1 check. All right. That actually probably is a nicer way for you than for me to do that. All right. Now let's go to localhost. And let's refresh. And for some reason, that did not register. Terminal. All right. Great. Accessibility checker is there. So I'm going to actually mess around with this, right? How do I know if something is accessible? I'm going to say introduction to integrals, since that's what the question over there is about. 1, 2, 3 part integration by parts or something math related, right? So I've done this in a lot of different headings, and ideally I think there should be an accessibility thing, and there is. The accessibility issue here is heading 1 should always be followed by heading 2. So I can of course repair this. I can change this to heading 2. Then I can say, hey, is this accessible? And then it says no accessibility issues detected. And I got all of this right out of the box by just adding A1, except A1, A11 check and checker over here to plugins. That's all I had to do to add the accessibility functionality. So it's really powerful to do this plugins. Let's do another one, right? I think I have a little bit of time. So let's look at another plugin example. Let's see, we go to plugins, go to some premium plugins. What else is pretty helpful? Spell checker. I would say spell checker is really helpful. If I'm writing something, I would love for there to be some sort of spell checking going on, right? And this adds spell checking as you type capabilities to TinyMCE. I think that's kind of cool. And let's see, how do I do this? So for me to have in the cloud installation, all I have to do is add TinyMCE spell checker to the plugin. So we'll go over here. I'll add TinyMCE spell checker. And then it says I should add that because I'm writing in English. We, of course, support multiple languages. That's like a heads up over there. So for the purposes of this, I think that sounds good to me. Then How do I add this to the toolbar is the next question. Um, oh yeah. So then if I want that dialog box, right? So there's a few different things about spell check. So there's this automatic spell check and then there's the spell check dialog box. So I want both because I want to see what's up with my spell checking, right? Um, so if you do spell checker active, gives you like that as you type. Um, you can set the thing to active. Um, you can go ahead and do that, see how it reacts to it. I would like the dialog box, so I'm going to add spell checker, potentially next to accessibility checker. It's another type of checker, and I'm going to say I do want the dialog. So I'm going to add that. I think that sounds good to me. Let's see if there's anything else that interests me in this. There's a few things like spell checker language you can add. Yeah, there's some content links, so feel free to read the documentation, and then you can look at what are the different like things. So in terms of toolbar button, you have the spell check dialog, which and the spell checker. So yeah, sweet. So once all of that is set, might have messed up a few things. That's why we can go back and forth. Let's see if that awesome. So I'm going to misspell a few things. The exercise so far is going smoothly. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. Okay. So let's say I have a few misspellings, and I'm going to do some spell checks. And look at that. TinyMCE found some spell checks. We have a few suggestions. None of these are really close, but this one works. So I accept it, and then smoothly accept, and done. So then you spell check it again. There's no misspellings found. We're all good to go. So very quickly, we were able to add a few things. Let me add a few other, I would say, plugins that usually catch my eye when I'm, if I'm building something like a spell checker. Um, let's see. Thinking of off the top of my head, which probably is not the greatest idea, but this kind of editor sometimes is very small for teachers and students alike. So let's talk about some open source plugins. We have things like preview and full screen mode, right? That can really enhance your editor. So what is full screen mode? Let's go back over here. Let's type in full screen. And maybe at the end of this, I don't care about remove format, so I'm going to have full screen over here. And if we go back to our editor, you would see full screen mode over here. So I'm going to remove some things from the toolbar that at the moment I don't care about that much, but can be very useful for things. So we're not doing too much with images and tables today. Of course, that is an option and a really great option, but there we go. So when you do all of that, there's the full screen mode. What it does is it provides the ability for you to put this editor in full screen, literally, and then edit so that you don't have to worry about all the noise around the editor. Then there's also something called the preview mode that you can add. So I'm going to go ahead and add that preview. Sometimes, let's say in this example, you're sending this to a student and, let's say you have this long list of things. You can add the preview mode, and then it gives you a preview of what the text would look like. I have a sample lecture that I'm going to copy. That actually looks horrible. Actually, that makes me think about another plugin that's available, which is called the PowerPaste plugin. Right? A lot of times, if you are in a learning management system or any sort of like control system, you are trying to import from a Word document or just get text from a Word document. And that's what PowerPaste exactly enables you to do. The way you use PowerPaste is actually quite simple. Let's look at the options. This is kind of thing. So yeah. So if you look over here, we have we have a few different options. So you can just do PowerPaste as a plugin. Um, let's see, I'm going to put PowerPaste over here right before full screen preview. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this, and I'm going to stick to the default prompt. I don't want to create any new functionality. I think whatever TinyMCE provides is good enough for me. So I'm going to just say prompt. And that gives me the ability to paste if I want to. And I believe there's also something with images that I believe I can set to true. Yeah, so HTML import. Yeah, I think the default value is true, so I think we're fine. Okay, sweet. So I have all of this set up. I'm going to go back to my editor. And let's see, go back here, copy this sort of lecture notes that I have, and then here you can either choose to remove the formatting or keep the formatting. I would like to keep the formatting, and this looks a lot better. So those are kind of like what you think about when people are asking me questions about like, what plugin do I use? Just think about like what a user would use this for, right? What is someone who's answering a student's question using this for? And then finally, this is a math problem. So we actually recently launched this extremely new plugin called Math. Very simply. It gives you the power to bring in like LaTeX and that kind of capability into your toolbar. It's very simple. You just put in math into your plugin and toolbar. So all you have to do is add, let's see, I'm going to add math over here next to word count. And then I think it'd be useful to add math maybe close to emoticons and char map. It's kind of like a symbol, right? That's what makes sense to me. You can move it around in your own toolbar. And yeah, go ahead over here. And as you can see, it's pretty much set up. I have my math over here. These things kind of got moved, unfortunately, but it's fine. Yeah, so let's see. I did this. I'm going to copy paste my lecture notes one last time, keep formatting. You will have a new integral. Let's insert math. I think that's how you do an integral. And then I want to say I want to inline with the text, so it inserts this math equation with the text. Very cool. I think we have a pretty good, solid editor with a good set of plugins. The professor can preview what he's sending out as a response to the student. I think all is well. So I hope that answers everyone's question on step 2. Now let's move on to step 3. Step 3 is to add custom templates to TinyMCE. It is a very powerful feature, and it does allow users to have this predefined content to the editor. So, if I have a blank screen and I don't know where to start to type, that's a pretty great place to start. So what I'm going to do is, as I recommended, always start with the docs, right? Click on the docs and actually look at how do you do this. And if I look at this, let's see. Yeah. If I look at this, I can see that there are a few different options over here. Sorry, I was getting a few. All right, getting pinged a little bit. So anyways, yeah, so how do you do this? The basic setup for advanced templates is you add a plugin called advanced templates. Then you can add either insert template or add template into the toolbar. The most important part, and I think I gave most of you a hint and I had a few questions around it, is adjust other configuration options as needed. And the other configuration options, if you hadn't looked at it, did I just lose my, there it is. If you haven't looked at it, was the context menu having advanced templates. Then you just add an advanced templates list. The caveat is all of these things do need to be defined in order for it to work. So let's just get started. I also give you a few other hints on how to set them up, like how to set up advanced templates. and so on and so forth. The advanced template itself, the array, the insert templates, it takes in, it kind of is divided up into sections, as you will see, and it takes in this group of templates, and within the group of templates you can have like each individual template. So let's say a professor has homework help templates, and then each of the homework help templates has a general help, a help for exam, help for discussion projects and things like that, so that the professor has these pre-written templates on how to write to a student, and it's consistent, there's no bias and things like that. So I should probably stop talking this much and just get started. So yeah, I kind of already gave you the code. How do I want to do this? Let me show you how to do this, how I would kind of figure this out. So I go to my plugin, I copy that, and then let's see, I go over here, and then I place advanced template somewhere over here. Then I add insert template. As I said, there's a lot of things going on. I don't think I really need font family right now. Yeah, so I'm going to have insert template somewhere over here. Okay, so all I'm going to do for this example is just insert template. Of course, I'm going to add it to my context menu, right? And then I'm going to say, I'm going to get started with the advanced template list. So if you actually go back to my example, you will see that advanced templates is defined kind of by this array. So what I'm going to do is I just, you know what, for the purposes of this, I'm going to copy it just like you guys would have. And then I'm going to go ahead and just define it inside this function. There are better ways to do this. Ideally, in an ideal environment, you'll have a database that you ping with all of these templates just stored there, and you're not kind of hard coding it. But this is an exercise. This is a challenge. So we're going to get started with it quicker than you are usually used to. And then I'm just going to add this templates over here. I think that's good enough. You could do the option that Copilot said, which was do that, like have a colon and point to the same thing. But because they're named the same, you don't have to do that. So yes, you can have a colon and define advanced templates as such, but this is good enough. And then now homework help, how do I do this? I actually have a predefined function just because we don't have enough time that I'm going to find, and I'm going to help you understand it. But yeah, so I just do that. You can actually define it more and more, but I think this is a good start for us. And once I have the templates defined, so here I have insert template, and then as you can see, that homework help group has been created over here. And then I have homework general and then homework help for exam. So here you can say, hey student, I've received your exam regarding the problem. This is what you need to solve this. For the lecture notes last week, feel free to refer. And then you can just kind of insert that template. And as you can see, this just helps the professor sort of, have a basic structure of getting started with answering a student's question. This can also apply to email templates. Let's say you're using an editor for an email messaging platform. Having templates is a really powerful way to empower your users to just write faster. No one wants to spend time writing, and that's kind of like what you want to help them do, is just write faster and be more efficient within an editor. So that is the templates option, and that's kind of how you kind of get set up with the template pretty quickly. Just a quick overview: you copy paste and have the advanced template set up. You add a few more paragraphs just outlining what you want your templates to spell out as, and then you can keep doing that, and you can keep adding more groups. Like for example, you can copy paste this and call this exam help. And then you can have exam help general, exam help after, exam help for, I don't know, like accommodation, something like that, right? And that will be reflected on your application. And you can just keep going with the number of templates you want to provide your end user. Sweet. So we have gotten to step 3. That was pretty simple. And I hope that kind of helped clarifies how I walked through that. Now, let's get into the most important part. We have about 15 minutes to go through this. So if I'm speeding through a lot of it, I will apologize in advance because I understand that sometimes just following along is also not the easiest. So yeah, sweet. Okay. I think I have everything set up. So the thing that you need to do before I get started with any of you is I hope everyone has gone to platform.openai.com. Make sure you sign up. I'm going to quickly sign up through my link. I'm not going to enter any passwords in front of you. But yeah, see, I have a basic thing set up. You can go through the docs. I had given everyone a hint on which one we are going to be using for the AI assistant. And then watch me not being able to find it, which is text generation. There we go. Chat completions. So this is the API that we're going to be using. It is chat completions. We are going to have to pass in a role and a content. You can understand a little bit more of these within this documentation. We are also going to be the model we're specifically going to be using is GPT 3.5 Turbo. It's cheaper, so I highly recommend using it. You don't need 4 or 4.0, 4.0 or 4 Turbo for every use case. 3.5 Turbo is plenty sufficient for like the basic use cases of your user, unless they want to do something really fancy. So yeah, here as you can see, you have to specify the model, the response format, the messages. You also need to specify where is it? That's weird that it's not showing me this, but yeah. So you also need to specify some things like temperature, which if you set it at 1, it's going to be very creative and very random. And if you set it at 0 or 2, it's going to be super creative and random. 1 is kind of the medium, and 0 is going to be really low. And yeah, that's kind of what you need to sort of get started. Just understand how this API call works. And yeah, just let's get started with it. So I am going to, and I see that a lot of people are pinging on Discord. I apologize. I don't want to open up a chat on Discord here, but I will pay attention to that right after this. Okay. So I've been coding this and now I want to add AI. How do I do that? So let's go back to, the steps. Go to the AI assistant, click on this link that we've provided for you, and you'll see you can play around with it live over here. Just, click this, say improve writing or something, and you can see how the end result is. And then you can go over here and you can understand the basic setup, which is add the plugins and then add it to the toolbar options. Great. So I'm going to add the plugin, which is as simple as saying AI. Then I'm going to add AI dialogue and AI shortcuts. Honestly, I think they're as important as undo, redo. So I'm going to add them in the beginning so we're not searching for them in our toolbar. And then I'm going to do something and I'm going to say I'm going to add AI request. Okay. So I actually do not like writing too much in this. I like to keep my init clean, if you ask me personally. So what I am going to do with AI request and what I believe I did over here is I did something like const AI request. And then if we look over here, you see the AI request takes in request and respond with. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to say respond with, I think there's two options in which you can respond, right? There's a way to stream. Yeah. So I want to do the respond with streaming callback. That's what gives you that nice, like, generating one word at a time, like streamed responses rather than an object response. You can do an object response, but I prefer streaming. So I'm going to do a stream callback. So respond with dot stream. Make sure it's async. And then that is going to take in two parameters, which I believe are signal. And all of this is in the doc, right? And your stream message. Oh, whoops. Cool. And I think I've set this up pretty much good to go. So that's what I meant by you need to set up your own AI request function. Now we need to do a little bit of coding in order to get this set up. So if you go back to the documentation and you actually go over here, you'll see that I gave you a hint down below saying you need to use this fetch API event source key. So what this is essentially the fetch event source module um, specifies like a specific URL, and it helps you do dynamic imports from JavaScript. And it's a way to just load modules asynchronously and just improve performance overall. This piece of line that I've attached basically tells your JavaScript engine to fetch the module specifically at a given URL, which is, and then extract the fetch event source function. So it's used, and we are going to be using that to make a network request to API. So that's how we're going to be using this. It basically is allowing you to do back end work in the front end. Again, I'm going to say I wouldn't recommend writing the AI request at all on the front end. This is just for the purposes of the exercise. I didn't know if anyone would have time to even set up all the server and things like that. Yeah, so let's make sure to take that into account, right? That is something I had said we should do. So I'm going to copy that from the instructions and fetch that in. I believe once you do that, you also need to have your OpenAI's API key, which for now I'm not going to, yeah, I don't think I'm going to publish that publicly because I do know what happens when I do that. Yeah. Oops. Okay. Sweet. Now, once I have the way to get the API key, before I don't give you guys too much of the thing. This is just a playground to get started, but yeah. Let's see. Members journal. Why am I struggling? Oh, there it is. Yeah, let's see. Sweet. So here I can create a new secret API key. I already have one, so I'm not going to go ahead and do, I guess I could create one, my test key for Vue.js or something like that. Sure. I'm going to go ahead and create that key. I have the key. Okay. Actually, let me just go ahead and use that key for now. We'll see if that works. If not, we're going to have to do something else. All right. So once I have the API key set up, here I have the AI request function, which is just handling this response with a stream. What I need to do is first I need to build the conversation array, which basically means I add each of the previous queries to the individual messages. And the way to do that is I just say const conversation. And this is because we do have a AI dialog box. So request.thread.flat map. Yeah. And then I have an event. And then if my event dot response, if my event has a response, right, then just return an array where the rule, right, was user. And I have content as event or request dot query. All I'm doing is saying that this is what the user has asked, and I'm storing this in an array to have all of my previous queries. Then I need to have what the assistant responded with. So I'm going to say content event or response dot data. And I have that. Then I have the else. Just return an empty array. I think that's good to go. So that is pretty good to go in terms of conversations. All right. The next thing that I need to do is probably define some of the plugin system messages that outputs like the HTML content. So in order to do that, I do const plugin system messages, and then I say, hey, request dot, I can type request dot system dot map content all right, that, and then I say role system content, and sweet. So yep, here I add the plugin system messages that we have to send to the API. And then in addition to the system messages, there's a few other things that I wanted to be as part of the default editor that we found at Tiny to be extremely useful. So that plugin system messages, do that, but then also add role system and then content. And these are some what I call pre-written prompts that we provide our users. So this is something I'm actually it's available on our open source site if you just go to TinyMCE and look it up. But yeah. All right. So you include that. Then I do role system. I don't want to say you cannot use Markdown, but this is some basic stuff that we add for our AI assistant. The reason we do it is because we don't want it to include. So if we ask the system to respond with an HTML response, we don't want it to say HTML at the beginning of the response. That would just make it things weird. So that's kind of the main reason why we do this. And then once we're done with defining how our system messages are going to look, what we're going to do is we're going to form the query that we need to send to the API. And in order to do that, what you need to do is say, okay, here's my content. It's going to have a request, context, length. If it doesn't have any content, or the conversation is greater than 0, then request.query. Then we respond with do your code. A very simple, here's my question and here's my context. So the question over in this case is the prompt that your user has asked, and the context is something that they have selected or something that we have selected in our end. All right. And then if we look at const messages, we're going to include our conversation. Oops. I know how to do this. Conversation, system messages, this thing, And finally, I'm going to say that role user content. Those are some things that are important to be including as part of messages. And then, of course, we have our request body, which we saw how to define in the API docs over there. So we need to set a model. The model is going to be GPT 3.5 Turbo. Then we need to set a temperature, which in this case, Pilot suggested 0.5. I'm going to say 0.7. Let's have a little bit of fun. The max tokens, 100 is low, so I'm going to say 800. And then I'm going to add all my messages to it and then set the stream to equal true. You don't have to set the stream to equal true if you didn't set this whole thing with dot stream, just as a heads up over there. And then finally, we're almost there. OpenAI's options. Let's kind of configure that. I'm going to pass in my signal. I defined my signal earlier. Then I'm going to pass in my method to post. Then I'm going to say there are some headers. This is like basic API call stuff. I don't want to spend too much time with it. So that's kind of how you set up a header to make an API call. Then I set up my body. An API body has just the request body, right? Stringify request body. Again, some basic API stuff. Nice. Once all of this is done, there is some things within, I believe this is available in the TinyMCE docs that we saw. So I'm going to paste that in, which is determining what we do when, how to handle the responses, right? So yeah, feel free to like go in there and kind of take a look at that. And then I go back and then I say return fetch API. Dot then and then I do a fetch event source. Fetch an event source. I don't know if I want to do that actually. Fetch event source equals fetch event source. Yep. All right. Then I'm going to say the API part that we're going to ping, right? Which is what I was kind of pointing out earlier, is this completions. And then actually, I wonder if there's a nicer way to do this. Yep. All right. Open AI options. And then open when hidden is true. And then we pass in all of that configuration that TinyMCE sort of already provides us with, that I got from the documentation page on error. Yeah. And then I say dot then, and then I create an async. So this is how you handle that response once you get it from OpenAI, which is, all right. Then here you say if response, and okay. So if my response is okay, what I do is I say const data equals await response.json. If data has an error, throw a new error. That handling error looks completely fine to me. Yeah, I think that looks good. Then I probably want to catch an error. I don't want, I think I defined that above. Okay, perfect. Sweet. I think I have all of this set up. What am I missing? All right. Did I miss? I missed a something somewhere. Hmm. Yeah, it looks like I missed a thing over here. All right, let's see. I closed the brackets. This is the best part about coding is when you need to figure out which parentheses you're missing. That's probably why we don't do these things on the front end anyways. Um, yeah. All right. Let's see. Oops. How did I? Whoa. All right. So if you can see, I have just managed to basically correct all of this.
Hey, can you please put share a screen?
Oh, yes, of course. Is
Thanks.
the screen not shared? I went into this thing in the future, so. Alright, where is my screen? Let's see. I thought it was showing a bunch of screens at once.
Perfect. Thank you.
Alright. So if you see that, yeah. So we should have the OpenAI request ready to go. All I did was fix a parentheses, which I had messed up while coding. So yeah, so once you've done
Yeah.
all of this with your Fetch
Hey,
API,
sorry again. It's me. Could you share the right screen because you're sharing your OBS and then it's like infinite window. You
oh,
probably want to share your VS Code, but you're sharing OBS.
I'm sharing OBS. Sorry about that.
On
All
share
right,
mode.
is is this the screen you're seeing right now?
We don't see anything right now. Oh yeah, right now. Wait. Yeah, we can see StreamYard. Like if you share
Can you see my code?
your desktop.
That's strange. Let's try sharing again. Entire screen. Now, do you see my code?
Yeah, we see a lot of windows. Yes, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So, what happened there was you didn't miss much in the sense that all I've done is I have corrected my parentheses over here. So, once I've set up my API thing, hit save, and then I go back to, oops. Whoa. Yeah, this is what I was trying to avoid earlier. So I go back over here and I should see my new AI assistant and AI dialog box. So I can ask the AI assistant to write a response to someone integrating by parts or something like that. Oops, did I not include an API key over here? Oh, strange. I thought I did. Um, let's see. Where did that key go that I've been using? Cool. Let's see. I think I copied it somewhere here. There. Um, all right. So I have my OpenAI's API key. Let's try this one more time. Write a response to a student to integrate by parts. And that works. So we can slowly but surely insert this into our application. We can even try to, it shows up here. So let's say I want to expand this more. That's not enough. Here, this writes a little bit more of an example. Maybe the professor wants to include the lecture notes and they can say here are the related lecture notes. Uh, I could type, promise. All right. So here, keep the formatting, everything is inserted. And yeah, we have a fully functioning LMS editor, which has an AI integration in it. Probably the most complicated part of the AI integration is just setting up the API request as per platform.openai's specs. But yeah, so I think that we have reached sort of the end of this. This is sort of like our final editor, as I had promised, how it would look like. Of course, there is a little bit more functionality. We're actually hosting a webinar as part of Frontend Nation on July 10th. So a month later, and we're going to go into even more functionalities. Like connecting to Azure AI, AWS Bedrock, import and export from PDF, and Word, and a lot more in terms of just understanding the functionalities of creating an LMS editor. Oops, let me stay on the screen and maybe I can go back to our Forge exercise. All right. So I'm gonna go over here and say call ourselves done, and stop sharing my screen. And actually, maybe I can share this screen and ask everyone, do we have any questions?
Hey, thanks again, Marina. Let's start by the easy and quick one. Where can we get this code from?
The code?
Yes. Can you
So,
publish it somewhere?
yes, if you actually go to the instructions, the code was always there for you. So if you scroll to the very bottom, there's solutions. So for
Okay.
each step, you can check out a branch: step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and follow along. So the code is already a part of the repository in different branches.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with TinyMCE, but yeah, that's quite powerful in terms of syntax and plugins. One question is about: is it possible to create our own plugin?
Yes, it is. It is possible to create your own plugin. Ideally, you don't want to, just get started in creating a lot of custom plugins because then you have to maintain them on your own. TinyMC doesn't support custom plugin maintenance, but yes, it is very possible. There is an API that you can interact with. In fact, if you go to the docs and look at API reference, you can actually go and specifically look at like the TinyMCE API, the plugin manager, the TinyMCE.editor API. So it's very highly customizable. Probably not in the same sense as a few other editors that you might have seen custom plugins for, but it does provide capabilities to create a custom plugin.
Yeah, and it's important to try to not reinvent a plugin that does it well already.
Right.
Yeah. I saw that it was quite easy also to implement OpenAI to it. Any other models? Because even if 3.5 Turbo might be the only one that we need, and we don't need to go for the 4.0. Still, is it flexible enough regarding this?
Yeah, so the AI assistant, you can actually bring your own AI, or you can bring your own model, is what our practice is. We don't have any vendor lock-in for you in our AI assistant. You as a developer have the right to choose which AI you're comfortable using or which platform. So within OpenAI, yes, you can use 3.5, 4.0, the new 4.0 model, and so on and so forth. But if you don't want to use OpenAI, you can use Azure AI, AWS Bedrock, Google Gemini, and we also have a proxy server reference guide, which enables you to use any other LLM that you want.
Nice. Yeah, especially if you can bring your own. It's very
Yep.
nice. Do you have any good examples of other use cases for the templates feature?
Yes, there's some great examples. It's one of our favorite. I think I said it's when we went onto like our features page, right? It was one of our favorite features. So think about like a content management system. Templates are a great way to enable anyone who's managing content to sort of get started writing something. If you think about an email and messaging platform, right? You don't want to think about how to write a newsletter from scratch. You don't want to think about how to create a sales email to a prospect from scratch. All of this needs to be provided. In fact, one of our biggest customers is SalesLoft, who use our email templates very frequently. So those are some other examples of templates feature. It's really used across different solutions.
Yeah. Okay. Um, that's pretty mature in terms of questions. Thanks very much, Marina.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I wish you an amazing day. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.